resting easy and sleeping sound today.
KCAA.
You're listening to U-Turn, a show about finances, nonprofit organizations, and politics in your county. And here is your host, Nadia Renner, Tom Murphy, and Eric Steinman with U-Turn.
Welcome to U-Turn.
We are happy to be here.
And happy Father's Day. We are live and direct. Happy Father's Day, Tom and Eric. Thank you for being here with me today, since you guys are both fathers.
They were glad to get rid of me.
Really?
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day to my dad, because I know he's listening. But today we have a great show. Last week we also had an amazing show. Last week we we reviewed elections results here in San Bernardino County. We also had Mark Gutglek from the Sentinel newspaper as a guest. We went over all of that last week. And this week is really good too. We actually got an opportunity to sit with Janice Rutherford, supervisor for District Number 2 earlier this week. Tom and I went to her office, and she definitely gave us the time, or the interview, I should say. So today we have a really good show. We're going to be covering her story or her interview as well. You can find all these radio shows on uturnradio.com. That's right. We have the website up and running with all the shows on there. You can also see us perform as we do radio here at U-Turn Radio.
Podcast or video.
And if this is your first time joining us on U-Turn Radio, Tom, what is U-Turn Radio about?
U-Turn at U-Turn Radio, we believe that big-hearted communities beat out small government, or beat out large government every time, and that's kind of our ethic. We're pushing to see government shrink.
You can also be part of our show and call us in at any time, 909-792-5222, or you can always email us at info@uturnradio.com. Here also at U-Turn, all of our listeners get rewarded. That's right. If you call in, we spin the wheel, and it could be from hundreds to thousands of dollars, and we would donate that money to your favorite charity here in the Inland Empire. We've had people win $500. I think the most that we've gone, or that we gave away, was what, $1,200 or $1,300?
I think we did $1,300 Institute of Justice. That's our that's our support of big-hearted communities.
Absolutely, yeah, $1,300. So you can be a winner as well and call in, call in 909-792-5222. So let's get into our show today. Do you want to kind of set up
the show for today? Actually is a bit of a continuation. It's the title is "You Won, Now What?" And what we do today is continue essentially what we did last week, going over results of the election. But we went out and like you said, we interviewed the 2nd District Supervisor Janice Rutherford, because we want to know, okay, you won the election. What now? What's your plan?
Right. So this audio that we're about to play before we go into the interview, it's just kind of getting to know her and a little bit of her background here in the Inland Empire.
My name is Janice Rutherford, and this is my interview on U-Turn Radio.
Tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and where did you go to school? I know you have a BA in politics, political science from UC Riverside, Master's in American Politics from Claremont Graduate University. Did you grow up here in the Inland Empire your whole life?
Yeah, my family moved to Upland when I was about 8, I think, and so my childhood and teen years was Upland, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and then my late husband and I got our first place in Fontana.
Okay, so you definitely grew up here.
Yep, this is home.
And this is definitely home for you. Tell us a little bit about your family. I know you have 2 sons, Ethan and Noah, and your husband, Steve.
Yeah. Ethan just turned 11 and got braces on this week, and Noah is 8 and fully enjoying his summer vacation.
How is it, or how does your family and all of this, being a mother, applicable to your work as a supervisor?
I think it gives me a great perspective on understanding that most people don't spend their day-to-day lives thinking about county government. They want it to be run well, and they don't want to have to worry about it. They're busy taking care of their kids' education and the family social life and soccer practice and Little League, and for a lot of people, worrying about how they're going to get the next meal on the table. They're not consumed with the day-to-day runnings of county government. That's what they hire me to do. And so that perspective, and always remembering that everything I do and say, I want to be able to have it be a source of pride for my kids.
Right.
And I think that holds me to a higher level of engagement with the public and thinking about things and how I approach things.
Tell us about your career prior to being elected to public office. What was that like?
So I was very fortunate. When I was 19, I was hired by State Assemblyman Bill Leonard. I ended up having most of my career with him. He was a state assemblyman, state senator, then member of the Board of Equalization. I started with him as a part-time paid student intern, worked my way up to chief of staff. When he went to Board of Equalization, I became a taxpayer advocate. So my career has been in public service, but my late husband always had an entrepreneurial stroke. So he did everything from theater to education consulting, computing, and running retail stores. So I would frequently leave the state office at 5 o'clock and go down to his store and work the night shift at the store from 6 to 11. So I got a very firm sense of what it is to have to be the business person, and also from his artistic streak and doing theater every summer, a real sense of education and working with young people and that creative side of thing and what that adds to a community.
You said a couple times late husband.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell us
Sure.
about that?
So my husband, Thomas Salas Rutherford, passed away in 2002 of leukemia. We had been married for about 8 years, but I met him when I was 19 and he proposed when I was 20. So he was really the early love of my life. And I miss him terribly, but he was so incredibly supportive of my public service. And I know he'd be incredibly proud and delighted with the kind of things that I'm doing today. But after his passing, I was fortunate to meet Steve Lim, and we fell in love and got married and now have these 2 wonderful children. So I've been just doubly blessed.
You talk about your late husband and having a business. Were you part of his business? Was that something that you also did personally, and has that helped with what you do now?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, seeing it from the business perspective of how many regulations and hoops to jump through and pieces of paperwork, and just when a business person has a question, it's and of course these were pre-internet days when he was having some of those businesses. There wasn't just one place to go to get an answer that was satisfying. So it was very frustrating to try to do business in California, and that's only gotten worse in the past decade or two.
What elected offices have you held prior to?
I was a Fontana City Council person before Board of Supervisors. I served there from 2000 to 2010. And prior to that, I was on the Fontana Planning Commission and the Fontana Parks and Recreation Commission.
So that was Janice Rutherford, supervisor of District Number 2 or 2nd District, and that's kind of like a little background on her story. And pretty much she grew up here, and we got to know her a little bit on that first segment.
Yeah, we all have personal stories, and I really appreciated her telling us hers. She's she's obviously well spoken, very motivated, and understands her district. One thing she said in there that I thought was pretty interesting was that most people don't want to think about government, which is absolutely true. So then the next question you ask yourself is, well, how does that happen? How do you get most people to not think about government? And to steal a line from a libertarian publication, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. And that's where I think government increasingly is failing on the second point. Don't take their stuff.
Yeah, and actually give them a little bit of service. Don't leave them sitting for 2 hours down at the building. Department office, that type of deal.
Right. Yes, absolutely. When you actually have to engage with government, you definitely want reasonable service. But on the day-to-day, working level, most of us don't really engage with government on a daily basis. So my perspective is I tend to think more about government's taking our stuff. You know what I'm saying? We're all of us are out working hard, and then when you sit down and and do your taxes, that type of thing.
It's not just our stuff. They're taking the stuff from future generations. You know, they're going in debt in multiple ways. And so for whatever services they're providing, for however well they provide them now, you know, people in the future and younger generations in particular are going to have to end up paying for that. So it's taking our stuff is kind of a simplistic way of looking at it. They're taking
I'm
our
pretty
stuff.
simplistic.
They're taking people in the future stuff, and they're not getting us any service, and that should come through on our shows. That you know, a whole lot of money going for all that stuff, and it's not like we're getting a good bang for our buck on it. You know, but by any comparisons, we're getting you know, poor service for a huge amount of money.
Yeah, if you remember from a couple of shows, again, the broken down building department.
I mean, you shouldn't have to wait 2 hours if they're spending all that kind of money and going into that kind of debt. You shouldn't have to wait 2 hours to see somebody at the building department or get tied up in there for years, and then pay all that money on top of it for, you know, stuff that really isn't effective. So.
And she kind of covers, we have an interview with her throughout the second segment. She covers a little bit of that too, and her opinion about that, because we definitely talked about, you know, the future as far as like us being stuck, like with, you know, paying more taxes.
Well, you know,
and
she's
that
coming
type of
off a
stuff.
campaign, and she's pretty used to, you know, talking about this stuff. I hope we get to the point of, you know, hitting her with some hard questions and seeing where she comes out on that. So.
Section 2, we talk about budget and the county retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be in the next section that we start hitting those things. And there's I mean, a recent issue just this week in terms of county fire and how they're going to finance that we'll go over. But it's you're going to be paying $157 more a year because you live in an unincorporated area, as my mom.
Meaning?
For the purpose of
this
paying more money to the fire department that uses a whole lot of money already, but you know, they want more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another $27 million.
Awesome.
And that's being mandated by the county or the state?
No, it's not by the state. What it is the borders. If I understand the issue correctly, based on the article I read, the Board of Supervisors voted 3-2 with
the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors.
3-2 with District 2 and District 1 were opposed to it. Understandably, what they voted was they're going to extend a tax to every unincorporated area. It'll be $157 a year, and if you live in an unincorporated area and you own property, you'll have to pay that tax, and that tax will go to finance county fire to the tune of $27 million a year.
Oh, wow.
And
what happened to Proposition 13? Does that have to get people to vote on that?
That's what's kind of on the table, and I'm not sure of the administrative background, but apparently they can get this done unless two things happen. If more than 25% of the property owners write a letter, then I think it has to go to a vote. And if more than 50% write a letter, a negative letter, then it's off the table. That's, if I understand, this was an article by, let me see. It was in the Sun, and it was by Sandra Emerson, and it was just 3 or 4 days ago. And I believe Janice actually kind of referenced the issue in our conversation, and you'll hear it in Section 2 here.
And speaking of Section 2, we're going to cut into a commercial break, and when we get back, like Tom said, we have Supervisor Janice Rutherford with us, or we interviewed her earlier this week, and she'll be, we asked her a few things of what we just covered right now, and she gives us her opinion. When we get back here on U-Turn Radio.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
Ugh, let's make a U-turn.
Why?
We are heading in the wrong direction. To get to our destination, we need to make a U-turn.
Just like when you're heading in the wrong direction, you have to turn it around. The government has to do the same. Here on the U-Turn radio show, we think that proper incentives are important if you want a good government. We believe good government is government limited in its size, its power, and its spending. And we are certain that limited government facilitates a free society. A society where all challenges, no matter the size, can be solved by neighbors working together rather than big government bumbling.
You too have control. Grab the wheel and help control the destiny of our community and join us as we cover topics that bring awareness to issues happening in our neighborhoods. Let's drive and make a U-turn into the right direction and join us here on KCAA every Sunday at 2 p.m. Come soar with us. We're Zip Lines, located in the San Gabriel Mountains, right next to Mountain High Ski Resort. We offer the thrill of a lifetime, zipping through one of our 2 zip courses that are literally built in the trees. Our Canopy Tour is one of the most ambitious zip line courses in the nation, offering heights of up to 300 feet above the forest floor and lengths of over 1,500 feet. Our mountaintop tour provides another amazing zip line experience and, as a bonus, a very unique experience. Imagine leaping off a tree platform in a controlled free fall. Now, imagine doing it twice. These are not for the faint of heart, but we know you have the right stuff to soar with us. For further information, please visit our website at ziplinesPC.com. That's ziplinesPC.com. You can make sure we hold a place for you by selecting your tour package and date online. That's ziplinesPC.com. Come soar with us.
Do you struggle to pay the rent? Keep up with the bills? Are you having a hard time putting food on the table? So are we. Americans pay more in taxes than on food and clothing combined. You don't like that. Neither do we. We are the Red Brennan Group. Our mission is change. We believe your tax dollars are funding a ruling class, even at the local government level. Need proof? Government spends 45% more per hour on total compensation than does the private sector. California's golden rule guarantees that from the day hired, a government employee's pension benefits can never be lessened. In San Bernardino County, on average, a 30-year employee retires with a $93,000 per year pension, 3 times the maximum Social Security payout. Higher pay, job security, guaranteed retirement, all on the back of taxpayers. Sound a lot like a ruling class? The Red Brennan Group believes big problems are always solved by taking little bites at the local level. Want to help? Contact us at info@redbrennan.org.
Support the San Bernardino City Mission. Your donations help feed the hungry, provide used clothing for low-income families, provide access to housing and rehabilitation for the homeless, and help all who come to them for help. The mission provides a personalized assistance program for homeless men and homeless women and children. They help get less fortunate off the streets, place them in safe shelters, and get them back on their feet. Last month, the community helped provide over 7,400 meals and provided nearly 2,000 pieces of clothing, as well as almost 180 hygiene kits, which were provided for the needy. San Bernardino City Mission goes above and beyond, though, providing personal counsel, prayer, and a devotion time to encourage those in need in their spiritual life. So listen up, everyone. For a donation of just $1.57, you can feed a hungry person right here in San Bernardino. $15.70 will feed 10 people, and $157 will feed 100 hurting men, women, and children. If you're interested in helping and want to know more additional information, you can go to sanbernardinocitymission.org or call 909-649-0011. 909-649-0011. The San Bernardino City Mission, feeding the hungry, helping the homeless. That number again, 909-649-0011. Or visit them online, sanbernardinocitymission.org.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn radio show right here on KCAA.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Being that it's Father's Day, happy Father's Day, by the way, but being that it's Father's Day, if a father's listening, we would love to hear from you. And you can call us at 909-792-5222. But if you call us, you win $1,000 just for calling in. However, if you also want to donate that to a charity, you get $2,000. So just for listening and calling, if you're a father, you win $1,000. The phone number is 909-792-5222. $1,000 on the table.
Wait, so I'm a father. How would I win $2,000? You say? How do I do that?
No.
And it doesn't apply, Tom, to anybody associated with our show.
Okay, so like last name of Murphy isn't
No,
going to
not
count.
Like if
gonna
you're
work.
Murphy, if you're Renner, Steinman, you cannot call. But if you're just anybody else and you're a father, you win $1,000 just for calling in. 909-792-5222 and $2,000 if you donate it to your favorite charity.
I wonder if my brother-in-law called in. Could I split it? Anyway, go ahead.
Tom. Anyways, before the break, we discussed Supervisor Janice Rutherford's personal and career background here in the Inland Empire. During this next session, we will cover questions about recent election along Supervisor's thoughts on county budgets and pension. So let's go ahead and play the first question we asked her. What are the top 3 priorities for the next 4 years for you?
It's hard to narrow them down to 3. For my second district, my biggest priority, and I'm looking at a map behind you, Lake Gregory has a dam that has a hole in it. We have finally started construction on plugging that hole and rebuilding the dam. I really want to see that project through to completion. Secondly, at yesterday's board meeting, we had a long discussion about the future of the county fire district, how we provide fire and emergency safety services in this county, and how we pay for that, and what level of service taxpayers here are willing to pay for. That's going to be a discussion that I think is going to occupy much of the next couple of years. And I think another thing that I really want to focus on is taking the results that we get from the Launch Initiative and seeing how we apply those to broader policy. Launch Initiative is a collaboration with the Inland Empire Economic Partnership, the County of San Bernardino, and Loma Linda University. We've handpicked some families who are in need of social services, and we're trying a different approach with them.
There is a strong and well-funded opposition to you in this last election. Can you point to any particular
Joe.
groups that supported your opponent So that and was- what they might have wanted to achieve? So the first audio was her 3 main things that she wants to take care of as supervisor right now. It was the first question we asked.
Yeah, remembering that the title of the show is "You Won, Now What." So that her 3, she admitted she has a lot of priorities, but the things she mentioned were fixing the hole in Lake Gregory, the Launch Initiative, and then the fire district. And in terms of shrinking governments or constraining governments, the only one that apply there would be the issue with the fire district, which we
I
talked
don't think that's
about.
constraining. It's preventing, I guess constraining if you don't allow the growth that comes with that much more revenue in their budget. But
that kind of is exactly my point, and it kind of goes back to the first section. And as an elected leader, particularly if your whole career is in government, you're kind of raised in this environment or your career environment, and you really have to step outside of the system to begin to look at it from the outside and say, wow, this is a large and growing entity, and it's growing quickly. And my job when I step in there is really to begin to fight very, very aggressively on the taxpayers' behalf.
Right.
To restrain growth would be step 1. And then step 2 would be shrink it.
or let the taxpayers themselves get a ballot initiative to that effect on the ballot as we put forward, and then the county sued us, and I would hope we asked her about that. But it's just another way that maybe we can do a quick look at the ways that the county is taking your money more and more, and that are going to affect everybody. You're parking at the airport, the fees going up, your fees for tickets and whatever fines and penalties have gone up on average 49% or something. I think we had some data on that. I think the costs in the building department and the service from the building department, just from my own personal experience, have gone up dramatically to the point where, even a couple, 6-7 years ago, they were charging $220, $230 an hour for just a clerk at the building department to work on your file, and they're taking on average a couple of years to get you a building permit. So you had to put up a deposit, and they just billed that on it like a law firm. And then we've heard the things where they're having you pay law firms to go after you to, that's happening in our county, to go after you for recover the legal fees when they do assess penalties. These are ways that are going to affect everybody, and this growth in government, it's not just affecting the people who have property or something like that.
Right, like you said, the fees, like the parking fees and that type of stuff. And you know what? I want to definitely say and share that all this stuff is so new to me because I wasn't aware up until I started working and learning about this stuff, like how much money we're really paying as taxpayers and what it goes for. So I think like also for people like myself that are probably not as aware, this is a great show to really learn where our money's going and how it's broken up, because it's really important to know these type of things.
Yeah,
sure.
and when for the younger people, like you, Nadia, it's the thing to really be aware of. The biggest way it's going to affect you is that they're heaping debt on you guys, and they're heaping debt on future generations by not paying. They promise these huge pension benefits, for instance, and they don't pay the money into the pension fund to pay them. So if somebody's going to have to do that later, that's going to be future generations. And so then when that comes around, they're going to look for even more ways to get fees to pay for that. The hard choices they're not making today, they're foisting on us future generations.
Right. Why don't we get into the second question, Tom?
The next section, she answers a question that we posed. That was essentially, how do you handle the conflict between hard decisions required of somebody in leadership and the pressure of, okay, maybe I want to run in the future, and I don't necessarily want to make unpopular decisions. So that was the question. And Joe's going to...
It's difficult. You have a constant struggle as an elected official between what would be politically expedient, and sometimes that is not the same thing as what is the right thing to do. And I always try to push myself toward that right thing to do. But I also believe in building relationships and trying to get those folks who would be on the political expedient side to understand and hop on board with the right thing to do. So it's a matter of open lines of communication, healing from the divisions wrought by a campaign, and there will be that opportunity. Again, we're a week out, so it's still very raw, but I have always practiced the politics of addition, and that is trying to go and build new relationships and restore relationships with folks who've been on the other side of things, because we all have more in common than what separates us. We get real hung up on the 10 or 20% of stuff that separates us, and we fight with each other, and I try very hard to resist the urge to take it personally, to resist the urge to be offended by things, but then to go back and build that relationship and start over and really try to listen and understand what the concerns were, and how can we solve those, and how can we address those concerns in a manner that's right for the taxpayers and the constituents.
And in that election, if I understand it correctly, the public unions that kind of the larger public unions, the sheriff and the fire, were not on Supervisor Rutherford's side, or not necessarily in her camp. So those are the people that she's now going to have to kind of interact with over the next 4 years, and for some reason they were unhappy with her. Now that could be good news for small government. She may have been on the fritz with them because she's trying to rein things in. I don't know.
That's the hope in having her reelected, is that given that it's her last term, she's term limited out, and she doesn't have to stand for reelection as a supervisor again. That she would feel less pressure get reelected and be able to take a step forward. Unfortunately, the way the whole thing works is they all have 3 terms that they can serve there, and then they max out their pensions over that period of time, and they're staggered. So you're never going to get a group of people who are in that same situation where they're serving their last term and pretty free then to take a stance that's not going to affect them in their reelection campaign, at least for supervisor. What we see more and more is a lot of these people go, they're not as much public servants as they are politicians. So they get elected to this office, then they run for state assembly, then they, I think Ramos is off to state assembly, then they run for state senate, then they run for assessor, and they're just all just trading positions. So that's
Kind of to have longer terms in each position.
well,
in there.
I think there's an argument for having shorter terms and just having a single term. You know, that you lose. They all argue that you lose some continuity, but you also lose the pressure in that regard, and it creates less opportunity for them to bounce around to other positions. And I think that's everyone who supports term limits, which is the majority of the people. They want people to be in the private sector, go into the public sector, do what they can, knowing what the problems are in the private sector, and go back to work in the private sector. And it's not what we got. We have bounce around the public sector as long as you can, and then get a consulting job in the public sector.
Right.
This next section, the question we posed to the supervisor was, hey, since 2010 and comparing the current budget that's on the table for next fiscal year, there's been a 53% increase in the budget. So we went from $4 billion to $6.2 billion in the space of 10 years. And we wanted to know, what are we going to do about that? So we can go ahead and play section 3 there.
I think, first of all, the baseline you're using, 2010, was, of course, just coming out of the recession. Well, actually still in the throes of it at that point. So I don't know that's the best starting point. It's not just population that would be relevant, but it's also the amount of folks who qualify for the services county government offers. Remember that 3/4 of our county budget is related to health and human services that are mandates from the state and federal government, and they're paid for with funding that comes from the state and federal government and is given to the county. Our charge is to administer those programs by formula, that is without discretion, but we hire the folks who administer those programs. So to the extent we've hired more people, it's probably because we have more clients in those social services areas, or because the federal and state government have required tweaks to those programs. We are frankly still understaffed with a lot of our social services. We added in this year's budget 89 new positions to our Children and Family Services division. Some of our social workers had caseloads that were almost 50% more than neighboring counties. It's too many to look after the well-being of those kids. So we've needed some more of those. We could probably still use some more, but we don't have the funding for it. Do we have enough firefighters? The firefighters will tell you no. That was part of the discussion I mentioned yesterday. Do we have enough sheriff's deputies? No. We need more sheriff's deputies in our unincorporated areas. So all of those things cost money, but we are very diligent about spending within our means and doing our very best to have a balanced and reasonable budget here in San Bernardino County. Whether we're competing with the private local economy, no. That is fortunately doing very well and booming as well.
Going back to the budget, how do we bend the upward curve of that government spending, that budget, back to at least equal to the rate of inflation?
So for county government, again, we're driven by federal and state mandates. These are not decisions that we're making locally. When the federal government and the state government say, here's who you're providing welfare to, here's who you're required to provide services at your county hospital to, and they give us the money to do that, we have to spend that money and we have to do those services. Those aren't local decisions. The truly discretionary part of the county budget is incredibly small. You have a board of supervisors that believes in self-sufficiency in small government as well. But our ability to roll back state and federal mandates, non-existent. We go to Washington, we go to Sacramento, we lobby for those things. They don't happen. And when the state and federal government issues a mandate to the county, we have to do it, even when they don't pay for it, and sometimes they don't pay for it. Counties in California are arms of state government. Counties were created by the state to carry out state functions. So we are doing the job that the state requires us to do, even when we don't like it, even when we disagree with it. I would remind you that the county doesn't levy local taxes. So the growth that you're seeing in that budget comes from increases in assessed valuation of property, because property taxes are the primary funder of the county government and of our discretionary programs.
So there's a couple interesting takeaways from that section, I think, and one is the idea that 2010 is a bad year to use as a baseline because it was in the middle of a recession. Now, in my mind, government budgets should not be predicated on how the economy is doing. Government budgets should be predicated on what do we got to do, how much does it cost to do it, and shouldn't substantially change. Pretty much track the rate of inflation.
Right. I would also add that if you're in the throes of a recession, you would think the welfare, and she's pointing out welfare for all this expenditure, that you would think in the throes of a recession you'd have a need for a greater expenditure in welfare than you would when, as she says, the private sector is booming and there's jobs available. The common sense is it would be exactly the opposite of what's going on here. So the explanation holds pretty much zero water for me.
Should we let's go into one more question before we break, and then we'll listen to the last part of her interview on the third segment. So let's play the next question that we asked her. We recognize San Bernardino County Employees Retirement Association is a separate entity from the county, yet obviously very closely related. San Bernardino County Employee Retirement web pages indicates you have served on its board since 2015.
I actually was appointed in 2011. I took a brief break. Supervisor Lovingood came in for a couple months, and now I'm back. So.
Oh, okay. Do you agree it is proper or fair for one generation to pile up debt obligation that fall on our future citizens who will then have to cover that debt while getting reduced or no services in return?
I don't know that the question follows the assumptions you laid out there. Look, I'm not a believer in deficit spending. I'm horrified by the way our federal government is running things. That's not quite the same as the county pension system. California's pension system has some challenges that absolutely ought to be reformed. Until there are changes in court decisions about the California rule that doesn't allow changes to existing employees' pensions, until that happens, we've got the system we've got, and we've got to figure out how to make it work. A well-designed defined benefit pension system based on incoming contributions and ongoing market returns ought to be sustainable. One of the problems that happened in California is that well-designed system got tweaked along the way by people who weren't thinking very far out into the future. When we changed all the assumptions to add the 3% at 50 for public safety, that was done at a time when things were booming and were up, and folks didn't really take a long view of that. In San Bernardino County and with SB Sarah, they took pension holidays where when the market was up, they stopped paying ongoing contributions. The system works best when it is steady and predictable. You can't take vacations, you can't stop contributing, you can't suddenly change all the actuarial assumptions and expect to get the same outcome. So the challenges with the pension system have been caused by policymakers making short-sighted decisions without the financial and actuarial backup. That said, SB Sarah is doing well and performing well, and we believe we're trying to make very responsible actuarial and financial and investment decisions that will allow for the funding to be there based on contributions and market returns and not future generations.
We followed up with some follow-up questions. In terms of performance, the performance at SB Sarah has been, according to their written communication, has been 4% over the past 10 years, which is a pretty big discrepancy between the 4% that they've actually received and the 7.5%. Actually, I think they're down to 7.25% now that they predict for the future. So the difference there is going to be the difference between, right now they're saying they're $2.8 billion underfunded. That's what SB Sarah reports. Stanford economist study in 2015 tied that, or pegged that at more than $18 billion. So I would say, yeah, maybe there is a little bit more.
Well, by anyone's estimate, they're billions of dollars underfunded in their pension. Is that a safe thing to say?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And isn't their actual performance in the past been in the neighborhood of 4%?
Yeah. It's 4%. That doesn't include last year's performance, which probably brought it up some because last year was a good year on the stock market. Mm-hmm. But over the past 10 years,
this is, but the big stock market thing happened more than 10 years ago. So this doesn't include the big dip in the stock market. This is in a normal situation where they've had nothing but a growing stock market, and they've been doing about 4%. So why are they predicting 7% in the future and basing all their assumptions on that? That's the chief difference between someone looking at it from the Stanford guy looking at it saying, look, you're really $18 billion underfunded, and them looking at it saying it's $2.8 billion underfunded, both of which are a huge debt to put on future generations.
Yeah, the Stanford study uses a different rate of return, obviously. I think it's 3.25%, and they also include...
Which is consistent with what they're doing. I mean, because they're earning 4%, they're paying a bunch of fees on it and all that stuff. That's all got to be considered as well.
Yeah, the 4% was after...
Net of fees?
Yeah, net of fees.
And then you got to consider that every once in a while the stock market goes in the tank, and you know all this stuff doesn't go happy forever. And yeah,
bingo. If you do kind of some reading on the pension funds across California, really public pension funds in general, everybody is terrified about the next burp in the stock market.
Yeah, but in order to get their returns, they keep putting more and more into the stock market, is what it appears to be. And so, you know, a safe, if it's your own money, you're putting it into, you know, lending on real estate and stuff like that. There's other ways besides stock market to put that in, or you're buying bonds and stuff like that. You might get a little lower return, but you know it's going to be there, not so much subject to a big hiccup like it was in 2008, 2009, right in there.
Yeah. All right, so what about if we cut to a commercial break, and when we come back, I believe we have like 2 more questions for her regarding the subject here on U-Turn Radio.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
Ugh, let's make a U-turn.
Why?
We are heading in the wrong direction. To get to our destination, we need to make a U-turn.
Just like when you're heading in the wrong direction, you have to turn it around. The government has to do the same. Here on the U-Turn Radio Show, we think that proper incentives are important if you want a good government. We believe good government is government limited in its size, its power, and its spending. And we are certain that limited government facilitates a free society. A society where all challenges, no matter the size, can be solved by neighbors working together rather than big government bumbling.
You too have control. Grab the wheel and help control the destiny of our community, and join us as we cover topics that bring awareness to issues happening in our neighborhoods. Let's drive and make a U-turn into the right direction, and join us here on KCAA every Sunday at 2 p.m. Come soar with us. We're Zip Lines, located in the San Gabriel Mountains, right next to Mountain High Ski Resort. We offer the thrill of a lifetime, zipping through one of our 2 zip courses that are literally built in the trees. Our Canopy Tour is one of the most ambitious zip line courses in the nation, offering heights of up to 300 feet above the forest floor and lengths of over 1,500 feet. Our Mountaintop Tour provides another amazing zip line experience, and as a bonus, a very unique experience. Imagine leaping off a tree platform in a controlled free fall. Now, imagine doing it twice. These are not for the faint of heart, but we know you have the right stuff to soar with us. For further information, please visit our website at ziplinesPC.com. That's ziplinesPC.com. You can make sure we hold a place for you by selecting your tour package and date online. That's ziplinesPC.com. Come soar with us.
Do you struggle to pay the rent? Keep up with the bills? Are you having a hard time putting food on the table? So are we. Americans pay more in taxes than on food and clothing combined. You don't like that. Neither do we. We are the Red Brennan Group. Our mission is change. We believe your tax dollars are funding a ruling class, even at the local government level. Need proof? Government spends 45% more per hour on total compensation than does the private sector. California's Golden Rule guarantees that from the day hired, a government employee's pension benefits can never be lessened. In San Bernardino County, on average, a 30-year employee retires with a $93,000 per year pension, 3 times the maximum Social Security payout. Higher pay, job security, guaranteed retirement, all on the back of taxpayers. Sound a lot like a ruling class? The Red Brennan Group believes big problems are always solved by taking little bites at the local level. Want to help? Contact us at info@redbrennan.org.
Support the San Bernardino City Mission. Your donations help feed the hungry, provide used clothing for low-income families, provide access to housing and rehabilitation for the homeless, and help all who come to them for help. The mission provides a personalized assistance program for homeless men and homeless women and children. They help get less fortunate off the streets, place them in safe shelters, and get them back on their feet. Last month, the community helped provide over 7,400 meals and provided nearly 2,000 pieces of clothing, as well as almost 180 hygiene kits, which were provided for the needy. San Bernardino City Mission goes above and beyond, though, providing personal counsel, prayer, and a devotion time to encourage those in need in their spiritual life. So listen up, everyone. For a donation of just $1.57, you can feed a hungry person right here in San Bernardino. $15.70 will feed 10 people, and $157 will feed 100 hurting men, women, and children. If you're interested in helping and want to know more additional information, you can go to sanbernardinocitymission.org or call 909-649-0011. 909-649-0011. The San Bernardino City Mission, feeding the hungry, helping the homeless. That number again, 909-649-0011. Or visit them online, sanbernardinocitymission.org.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn radio show right here on KCAA.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. Before the break, we were going over some questions that we asked this past week to Supervisor Janice Rutherford. And here's the other question we had for her.
Are you concerned about the effects of the growing disparity between, if you will, a private citizen in their future retirement and a government employee in San Bernardino County?
I'm very concerned, and I hear it. I hear the resentment that has built up and continues to build up from folks who work in the private sector, and they look at their neighbors who are, say, retired firefighters, and I don't mean to pick on them, I'm just using that as an example, but they look at that lifestyle difference, and they are angry that their neighbor's higher lifestyle is financed with their tax dollars.
Is there any, move afoot within the county to address that concern?
We are governed by California's 1937 Pension Act. We can't do anything ourselves. Again, counties are arms of state government. Our pension system is a function of state law, so it needs to be changes made at the California level.
Okay, there's no, latitude within the fact that San Bernardino is a charter county to go ahead and kind of establish their own, approach to pension?
No, I looked into that very early when I got elected in 2010. We spent 2011 studying that. Then California did the Pension Reform Act in, I believe, 2012. We've implemented those. We're going to start to see some of the effects of that as we move from the Tier 1 or the older employees covered by the older pension system. We're already seeing some savings as those new Tier 2 employees come through. We think that will be fully settled into the system in about 5 years. You'll start to see that work through. But no, we have to rely on changes at the state level.
So that was our last question about retirement with her. Why don't we go? Do you guys have any comments before we go into the last question?
I think just the key point there is that she acknowledged the tension between a private citizen and a public.
Well, she also sees nothing that she can do about it, and that's not true. I mean, you can create more community service districts, for instance, where those people have the right to hire people initially with, and that's putting somebody doing that same government service with a defined contribution pension instead of a defined benefit pension, which is what gets everyone in trouble when you have government managing a defined benefit pension that they're not accountable for. So there is definitely ways, including breaking up some of the government services into community service districts and that sort of thing, that can be done to reduce this problem. And there's just a lack of creativity, I would say, on their part in finding those.
And this is going to be our last question that we asked Janice Rutherford, supervisor for District Number 2, 2nd District. Do you feel that people working for the county are more highly skilled and thus entitled to greater compensation than people in the private sector not working for the county?
Most or many of the jobs in county government, there's not a private sector equivalent of. They're government jobs. But I do think in general we've gotten out of whack, not just in San Bernardino County. This applies to, I think, all governments in California and maybe all governments in the United States. It used to be public sector salaries were lower, and so you got a little extra on the benefit side to make up for that. And again, the long-term security, the pensions, and those sort of things. But you can't argue anymore that government workers are underpaid compared to their private sector counterparts. Most government workers are paid fairly well for an equivalent or similar job in the private sector, and yet the benefits have continued to grow. That is predominantly a function of collective bargaining in California.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, although I think I would take issue with their government jobs, so they're substantially different.
I think the difference is they're not held to any standard. There's nothing enforcing them to deliver a product or accountability for their job in government. You have to trust people in government to do their job well, not because they have to sell against somebody else and provide those services. So if they had to compete with somebody, you wouldn't wait 2 hours in the building department, but that's not the case, so they can do their job however they want. So I would say in addition to being overpaid, the demands on them are less.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our interview with Janice and pretty much our show today, too. We want to say happy Father's Day again for all the fathers out there. Thank you for Supervisor Janice Rutherford for also allowing us to interview her. And that wraps it up for us, guys.
What do we have scheduled for next week?
Well, next week it's not confirmed yet, but we might have the other supervisor, Kurt Hagman, here on the show.
That's the plan. All right.
That's the plan.
See how it goes.
And we'll ask him about voting for that fire thing if he.
And that is U-Turn Radio. Thank you, guys.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
The Astros stay hot. I'm Jeff Nathanson. Houston got a home run from Carlos Correa on their way to a 7-4 win over the Kansas City Royals today. So the Houston Astros baseball team has now won 11 consecutive games. Other finals into NBC Sports Radio was the Rays over the Yankees 3-1. Reds beat the Pirates 8-6. Eugenio Suarez and Scott Schiebler both had home runs for Cincinnati, but it was the catch by Billy Hamilton in center field on the warning track that you'll see on all the highlights. It was a beauty. Full-length dive. Reds beat the Pirates 8-6. Blue Jays beat the Nationals 8-6. Speaking of great performances, the losing team's Michael Taylor had 3 hits and 4 stolen bases. Blue Jays swept Taylor and the Nationals over the weekend. It was the Indians over the Twins 4-1. Shane Bieber got his first Major League win on the hill for Cleveland. It was the Braves dropping the Padres 4-1. Julio Teheran got the win for the Braves. He went 6 innings, struck out 11, walked 3, but the asterisk is he pitched 6 innings of no-hit ball and still got pulled. He may have had a bit of an ankle sprain, but they yanked him with a no-hitter going. Braves beat the Padres 4-1. Tigers beat the White Sox 3-1 the final in that one. Games in progress right now, 6th inning. Giants leading the Dodgers 4-1. Red Sox 5-1 over the Mariners. That's in the 5th. 7th inning. Rockies are leading the Rangers 10-6. Phillies leading the Brewers 9-5 in the 8th inning. The Angels lead the Athletics 4-2 6th inning. And in the 5th, it's the Diamondbacks 2-1 over the Mets. One other final just in. The Orioles over the Marlins 10-4 at Camden Yards. That's a final coming up later on. It's the Cubs and the Cardinals. World Cup soccer. First round matches. Mexico upset Germany 1-0. Brazil and Switzerland played to a 1-1 draw, and Serbia dropped Costa Rica 1-0. Jeff Nathanson, NBC Sports Radio.
This is KCAA.
In the Inland Empire, you know how much it means to have neighbors you can count on, like the Cookout Kings who invite you over every weekend for Burger Palooza. Well, here's another good neighbor you can count on, State Farm agent Joe Amlani. He and his team are here to help life go right when you combine your home and auto insurance, which can save you money and time. So combine home and auto and start the savings rolling.